everybody. Welcome to Built by BIPOC. My name is Carissa Begonia. I'm the founder of Conscious Exchange. I'm a second-generation Filipino-American daughter of immigrants, a diversity, equity, inclusion practitioner specializing in API identities and experiences, as well as a business and leadership coach for BIPOC professionals and entrepreneurs. I started Built by BIPOC because I was tired of hearing that there aren't enough BIPOC talent out there. And also tired of hearing that or being the first, the only, the other in spaces I often find myself in. So on this show, I highlight the journeys and the practices of BIPOC entrepreneurs and company leaders who are either claiming their seats at the table or building their own tables and advancing DEI at work. So today, I'm really excited to introduce you to a newer friend of mine, Devon West LaRue. Hi, Devon.
Hello, everyone.
Or Wes,
Hello.
I should say.
Yes, I go by Wes.
Well, a little bit about Wes. Wes is a skilled multimedia content creator with extensive customer service experience, business acumen, and attention to detail. He's versed in the latest trends and designs and successful at both collaborative and independent environments. He launched his production company, 2020 Productionz, in October 2021 after leaving his job in corporate America. Most recently, he moved to Mexico and launched a digital nomad travel vlog called Waves and Wi-Fi, Seeking Peace Through Immigration with his wife, Elizabeth LaRue. I just wanted to give you a little bit more background too, that I met Wes when I was looking for a BIPOC videographer or really a video editor to help with something like this show, right? And some other videos that I was going to work on. And you know what? He really stood out because he started just engaging with my content and I just started recognizing his profile picture, his name. And I just wanted to share, this is largely how you get on people's radars, right? That's how you get someone's attention is you start just showing up to their stuff. And if you're like me, I'm gonna probably reach out, right? And someone who gets pinged a lot of DMs. Wes has definitely been someone that I'm like, who is this, right? And we hopped on a call, and I was like, this guy's really cool. So and really interesting story of like how you are in all of your travels. So I'm gonna let Wes talk more about himself, but today we'll be talking about pursuing alternative careers, doing something different that's out of your comfort zone, and going against the status quo. So welcome, Wes, and thank you for joining me today on Built by BIPOC.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank everyone who is here for participating. This is actually my first, video interview, and I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the invite. So, a little bit about me. I do go by Wes. I know that's a little confusing for a lot of people. Like, is it Devon? Is it Wes? I go by Wes. Much easier. Keep it simple. A little bit about me. I have a background in media production where I've been doing that pretty much since my teenage years. I started doing content before, the name content was up everywhere back in 2005. So we're talking pre YouTube, MySpace era. Where you have your top fives and like who's in your top fives. Yeah, that was when I got started, and from there I got started through my church, and I ended up starting to create vlogs. I was doing weddings. I was doing conferences for churches. Pretty much anything you could probably think of media wise, I'm pretty sure I've done it. So I have this, it started off hobby, but how it's grown on me, it's become an outlet and a way to actually tell my story.
That's awesome. I know you created also a video that is one of the, I guess, the first ways I also was introduced to you. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that video?
Yeah, so the name of that, I can, you know what, can I drop that in the chat?
I think we can.
Um,
If we
all
if
right, it's called adaptation. So to dive in just a little bit more, um, telling my story, adaptation grew out of I want to say, a need to, you know, get things out. Kind of like journaling. It was a way for me to express myself and be able to, get some of the weight of the economy and the state of the United States and the discrimination, the racism. There's just so much of it. And it started right after George Floyd. I remember talking with Liz and, telling her I need to do something. I need to like find a way to get all this out, because as a black man, dreads, I could easily, be a potential target, and that was heavily, heavily weighing on me. So adaptation came about through that. I didn't want to do anything in regards to race at first. That wasn't even on my radar when I started getting into creating content. That I was just mostly doing a lot of music videos, working with a couple of producers, one, KJ Bradley, working on projects with him, and it had nothing to do with race. But given the recent events happened, pretty much since the pandemic, my focus has completely changed to, what, let's tell my story. Let's tell the stories that other people have that can't actually voice what they want to say, and, give it out to the people.
I love that you recognize that with yourself. I think sometimes a lot of us don't maybe think about our racialized identity until maybe we're forced to, right? I
And that
think
was it. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, I was forced to. The first time was actually with Trayvon Martin. So that was my first time seeing the extent that people will go to kill a black man, and or kill a child for that matter. I'm a bit of a history buff, so I love, learning about history. And for me, the plight of black men and black women throughout, the centuries has always been in the back. It's always been that's happened, that's in the past. We're moving on. But seeing what happened with Trayvon Martin, and then seeing how George Zimmerman was acquitted, and how people were celebrating that was like an eye opener for me. And I was like, wow, that could have easily been me, because around that time I believe I was maybe 2019 or 20, somewhere around there. And forgive me if I'm sweating, it's a little hot. I had to turn my fan off. But anyways, so yeah, that was like a real eye opener for me. And like, I started having to look inward, and here we are now. So adaptation is me looking inward and drawing parallels from the past, and in today's climate, and using actually Frederick Douglass's autobiography to uh, convey that.
yeah. So it sounds like, like a lot of us, right, when we're forced to maybe confront certain like
Mm,
issues, or like our especially racialized ones, right? Um,
mhm,
some of us can just internalize that, and others, like yourself, will create magic from it, and something like that people can learn from, and even it really is a tool for your own self. Probably initially,
mhm,
it's like it's just a
mhm,
healing tool for yourself. You
mhm,
know, um, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that journey even
mm,
of embracing your racialized identity. I think it's not
mm,
something that folks understand that we're not. It's for me at least. It's a label was given to me, right? I don't
mm,
walk around being like I'm an Asian woman, right?
mhm,
I'm
mhm,
kind of fighting things, so I think there is a period sometimes of that reckoning, and then also
mm.
whether we embrace it or not, and knowing that we move in a different way through this world because of our racialized identity, whether we like it or not,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yes. Uh, I tried to really skate through and like fly under the radar of being black. I never really tried to make a show of it or anything. And in my previous marriage, was to a Southern white family, and I actually just, for all intents and purposes, kept a low profile. Like I'm here, just kind of keeping things low. But the whole Trayvon Martin thing was like, for me, it was the eye opener. For two, it was the eye opener, with the family that I was with, and how it didn't even affect him or affect them. And that's when I started thinking, like, wow, this feels funny. This isn't right. I've been in Florida. Let's see, I lived in Florida for about 16, 17 years, so I never saw anything heavily racial. I knew that there was, I knew that there was a divide between black and white. I knew that there was also, a bit of a tension, and things were kind of weird. The high school I went to, a white high school. So, I always knew it was there, but it didn't really register to me. It didn't have to register to me. And when I, was in my first marriage, I had a few run-ins with the law. For example, I had a cop tailing me at night, and I was heading home, and a cop was, trailing me for, a good 5 miles. And I decided to pull over into an empty gas station that was closed. Nobody was there. Hopped out of my car, and I'm like, what do you want? What, like screaming at him. And, that could have been moments that we see now where he could have killed me. He could have easily saw me as a threat. Boom, boom, boom. I felt the fear of my life. I took him down. It could have been one of those. And the more that I see things like that happening with, oh man, there's just so many names. We all know the names, but when I start to see that, I start to identify like, man, this is really a becoming hazardous to my health, and that actually was one of the biggest reasons we, decided to immigrate to, Mexico. So that it was heavily influenced by the fact that I don't feel comfortable going to a grocery store without thinking that someone's going to come in and, aim at me particularly, or go to a gas station, or I can't live. I can't live. I can't breathe. I can't be. And that was always important to me. I couldn't be who I was, and I was also always seen as a threat. So yeah, that informed a lot of my decision.
Thanks for sharing that, Wes. I'm feeling that the heaviness of that. I can't breathe, right? I can't just be and move. Um,
Hmm.
and I had, not that this is in comparison at all, but I had like a little bit of that, like what that might have felt like with the pandemic and like the Asian
Hmm.
hate and stuff happening. And yeah, fear
For sure.
just walking outside my own neighborhood, right? Like for a
Hmm.
while. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I know
Yeah,
that's fear is still
it
really
kept
there.
me it kept me like inside the house. It kept me scared to go check the mail. It kept me scared from taking the garbage out. That I when we were living in Bradenton, in Florida, of course, I take out the trash. I will check the mail. I'll do things that require going outside. And since I was in a predominantly white neighborhood, that started to scare me as well. I couldn't mow the lawn. I couldn't pressure wash the house without people like staring outside their windows, just staring at me for no reason at all, except that I might, or I don't belong in the neighborhood. So it's, it's sad to see. It's sad to have experienced it, but I also find it liberating that I can, actually, just release a lot of that.
Yeah. You said it was the kind of impetus for you to move to Mexico. And what a lot of what we talked about in our pre-meeting here, just us getting to know each
Hmm.
other one-on-one, was um like you're now an expat, right? Like you've moved, and so much of your story is about doing things different, right? Doing things
Mm. Yes.
out of your own comfort zone.
Yeah.
Or removing yourself from places where you do not feel comfortable, and then finding that
Hmm.
comfort, right? And so,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I mean, it's not common when less than 30 or so percent of people Americans have passports, much less leave the
For sure.
country to actually
Hmm.
reside somewhere else. That's just an exciting journey, I think, for a lot of folks, especially again as the ability to work from home or work from wherever.
Hmm. Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. For sure.
can you share a little bit more about what that was like? Did you just pick up
Yeah.
and leave, or you're like, I can't do this anymore, or was there a lot of
Well,
planning?
it was a ton of planning. Even though it happened in a very small period of time, there was a lot of forethought and a lot of planning. And excuse me, get my preacher on real quick. Um, Took a lot of planning to do it, and we were actually considering Panama at first. First, we were like, we had moved to Northport, Florida. We're like, okay, so where are we gonna, go next? Where could we possibly go? We were thinking Panama. Originally, we had, looked up the location, did all the due diligence of finding out, food, healthcare, internet, the whole 9 yards. So we originally were thinking that is at first, because we had seen a lot of uh, Black people have been moving to Panama. So like, okay, so why not? Cozumel actually came about because we vacationed here in July of this year, And when we got here, Liz was so excited. She was like, "I wonder how much rent is here," because the Airbnb we stayed at was incredible. The we have as of right now we have a papaya tree. We have like dragon fruit that actually produce fruit, avocado tree, stuff like that. So she was excited, and she was like, "I wonder how much the rent is." Found out how much the rent was, and it was completely feasible to live here. So we just started considering, okay, maybe it's not Panama, maybe it's Mexico. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've never lived anywhere else. I lived in Florida for 16 years. Never ever considered, yeah, let's pack up and move. And I don't know anyone in my family who actually does that, like, or who has traveled abroad or even considered living outside of the US and actually making that step, even friends and family. So for me it was really huge, and also being able to be pretty much the first in my family and in my immediate community to be like, you know what, I'm out. And and it scared me. I'm not gonna lie. It's scary when, for one, we drove the whole way. So we're talking from Florida all the way up through Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and then into Mexico, seeing the mountain. So it was about a 1,200-mile journey. So we spread it out over about 2 weeks, but it's worth it. It's still been worth it. It's like the best move I've could have made for myself mentally. Like
Mm.
I I I can actually connect with locals here. I can actually go to the store here and go get something to eat at aisles without feeling like people are like neighborhood type of deal, and it's been beautiful. But the journey was long. Um, we did document the journey on our Patreon of Waves and Wi-Fi. So you guys should check that out, because yeah, it wasn't in. I will say it was, it was actually a pretty light journey. Like all the things that people said that could happen or did happen to other people, or run-ins that they had, this, that, and the third, we didn't even experience. So it was like it was a breeze. Like it was a breeze. I can't lie. It was a breeze.
I think a lot of times what stops us from pursuing something, especially something big, right? Like a international move is this fear or these this caution, don't
Yes.
do that,
Yes. Yeah.
things
Yes.
that are
Yeah.
very real and also
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anticipated, and it almost stops us, right? It really sometimes prevents us from moving forward on anything.
For
What
sure.
what kind of helped you move past the fear, whether that's from this move or in general? How do you've done this a few times where you're defying what,
Mm.
say, your family is normally
Yeah.
doing or your
Yeah.
environment is creating for you or whatnot. You're like, actually, I'm going to do something else, and maybe starting with Mexico, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stories of, yeah, you had told me you're like, I'm a shy or introvert, but I'm like, you're
Hmm.
making a lot of bold moves here, friend.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I'll say it was probably the turn of the decade for me when I first turned 30. I had a lot of self reflection, and just, excuse me again. I apologize. I had a lot of introspection to my 30s, and like where I've got, how far I've gotten now is have been made based off all on the same decisions, all off the same thought patterns and habits, and it was literally just getting me nowhere. It was, it wasn't working. Nothing I was doing was working, and I'm like, okay, so something's got to give. I got to try something different. And for me, that was, for one, saying yes to things. That actually helped, because I'm a no person. Like, you want to go somewhere? No, I'm good. No. And in my brain, I'm like, I want to go. Yeah, I want to go. And then I'll be like, no, have fun. And that's always kind of been my thing. So swing that, and that was not easy. Switching from one mindset to another of being like, okay, let's say yes, and what's almost kind of like, what's the worst that could happen, but not in a dangerous way. like seeing more of the pros rather than the cons. I'm definitely a con person, like, oh, this won't work, because I've seen so many cons piling up on, one after another. But I'm like, okay, so what if I just, say yes and, do things a little different? And it started with that. So the journey here to where I'm at now was very, very small changes that I made incrementally, and it got me to this point. Um, regards into family, um, I just had to, I guess, say no to a lot of what people were saying, and not internalizing everyone else's fears, because that was also something deep for me. Is like I would easily be like, you're right, like your fear is, it's set in truth. What truth, I don't know, but there's some kind of truth to what you're saying. And I'm like, all right, no, I won't do that. So it was not internalizing people's opinions and experiences, about things that, for one, they probably don't know anything about. One of the pushbacks I got was actually that Mexicans hate Black people. I won't deny that that's a probability, but at the same time, white people don't like Black people. I mean, so what's what's the that wouldn't change anything from that perspective. So I'm like, you know what? Let's say yes. Let's not do the same things I was doing before, and listening to other people's opinion, trusting myself, definitely trusting myself this time around, and seeing what could happen if I just do that. And this is literally the result.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're collecting those wins along the way to get you here,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of times when I talk to, say,
For
my
sure.
coaching clients, right, it's like, yeah, like you said, it's the internal push and motivation and evidence,
Hmm.
not the external validation that really drives us, right, has to drive us, right?
Hmm.
Like, so when you're collecting all of the what happened when I said yes, and what
Mm.
happened when I pushed
Yes.
back on these like anticipatory or on other people's worries and
Hmm.
fears and such, and I said, okay, thank you, but it's not mine, right? Like what happened because of that, and collecting all of those pieces of evidence for yourself, right? Eventually, you
Hmm.
make a bigger move, with those smaller ones, and so
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's a definitely.
Yeah, I think that's, I think for anyone who's a lot like me and introverted, I think that's probably the best thing you could do, is just stack your small wins, because those wins start to compound on
Mm,
top of each other, and you start to trust yourself more. You start to give yourself more credit, about the things that you have done. Like Liz put in the chat, I drove the whole way to, Mexico. I drove from Florida to Mexico. I did that, and you know, through like one state, I believe. I don't remember which one, but I did.
thanks, Liz.
Now, because I wanted to.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
don't miss that. I wanted to do it, and just those things. I was like, okay, so I got my passport. Oh dear, like I actually have a passport. Like that's my face on this passport, and I can go places now. Even small things of first visiting Cozumel. And that was my first plane ride. It was just these small, very small incremental things that started to, change what I thought about myself, and created, a new path of, what they call it, neuroplasticity. So it definitely was creating new pathways, for me. And this is something I wish, a lot more people could grasp for themselves, especially Black men, because I can I was joking the other day real quick, about I'm a little bit scared to talk to my family now, because if I tell them that I'm drinking like hibiscus soda or something like that, that would make me sound just a little, just a little, uppity or whatever. But it's saying yes. It's not living in fear so much. It's just betting on yourself.
yeah.
That's big things. Betting on yourself.
Since I've met you, there's you just share so many more stories about this is the first, this is my first, this is my first, and I'm like, wow,
Hmm.
wow.
Hmm. Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it's exciting to hear that all those firsts are just compounding from you, and you just like you're so like you're smiling like ear to ear of let's just try this. I don't know, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I think that's really inspiring to share with folks that you can start where you are, start now,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You didn't have to
Hmm.
have what's called the background to just start, um,
Hmm.
and go and bet on yourself. You know, we're running out of time already, but I wanted to just
That's all
real
right.
quick about, you know, yeah, more firsts and such,
Hmm.
being an
Hmm.
entrepreneur and that what that journey has been like too.
Hmm.
And really one like a practical tip for folks to hear about what is it going to be like to go from, you know, say working your full-time 9 to 5 corporate whatever corporate
Hmm.
role to be an entrepreneur and maybe even an international entrepreneur, right?
Yes. I think for me, I've always had a love-hate relationship with entrepreneurship. So I was always like trying to be able to do my own thing, but always ended up how at a 9 to 5. So that was pre-30s. And, you know, finally trusting myself is always it's going to be something that's like reoccurring for me. I'm seeing way too much positivity to be like, okay, so no, I probably can't do that. Like, let's be. I got to be honest with myself. Like, yeah, it'll probably work because look at what's happened so far. Like, and it's not. It's nothing's gonna happen overnight. I can promise you that it won't happen overnight. You're not just gonna wake up and be like, yeah, I can conquer, Mount St. Helen or something like that. No, it's not that. It's literally just taking one step at a time, and that's kind of what got me through the drive. Is just just slowly. I'm slowly getting there. There's progress being made. The slow progress is being made, and then it's starting to somewhat steamroll in a very good way. So if that was a tip, it just be bet on yourself, trust yourself, and start where you are. Just start where you are. That's what I did. I was like, just I'm here. Let's make this happen. I already have the skill set to create videos and all that. So let's do it. That's plain and simple. Let's do it.
Let's take that next step, that next leap and see what happens.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Wes. I like to kind of end these interviews with a rapid fire round. Just quick
Let's do it.
questions. Is that cool if we do that?
Yes, let's do it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
cool. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't supposed to.
Be here. Wasn't supposed to be here in Mexico, living the dream. This definitely wasn't forecasted at all. So, boom, number one.
The future I'm building is.
Uh, uh, a company of awareness, storytelling, education is a lot of what I think is coming next for me. It's a lot of education on Black history.
Mm. And I am most grateful for.
Liz, she is my biggest fan. Second to well, no, second to no one. I was gonna say my mom. My mom's my best second, but Liz, yeah, she's number one.
Amazing. Well,
Oh, was there?
thank you so
There was
much,
there was a question.
Wes. Was there some questions you saw in the chat that you wanted to answer?
How's my Spanish? Yeah, Charles Phillip. How's my Spanish? It's terrible. Just, it's terrible, but slow progress. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But
And
yeah.
you're immersed now, so you will, right?
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Well, Wes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, we're
Thank you.
newer to each other. You've expressed to me that I'm also your first live or
Yes, you
kind of
are.
interview in general, live or not, right?
For sure, for sure.
So I'm even really honored to be part of your journey of firsts, if you will.
Thank you. No, thank you. The pleasure's mine. I promise you. The pleasure's mine. For sure.
Yeah, and continue to follow your journey, maybe even be working with each other. But
Yes.
this is, I think, again the power of movement, right? Like I started Built by BIPOC, or I created Built by BIPOC on this particular platform
Mm.
because of how easy it is to connect with folks, strangers in a different country, right? And and just have an amazing conversation. And so, if any of you liked what Wes had to share here today, just click, follow, connect.
Follow us
Um,
on Patreon. Waves and Wi-Fi.
and Patreon, yeah. Wes, where else can people find you? What are you working on like lately that you want to maybe share with
I'm
folks?
actually working on the Waves and Wi-Fi, definitely that. I'm also working with one of the representatives from Oceania on a side project with her regarding the right whale. So a couple of projects, coming down the line, but I'm very open to working with any and everyone.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you again, Wes. Maybe more to come from even the two of us, right? And
For
Liz
sure.
too. But thank you so much. And for everyone watching, Built by BIPOC is weekly. Replays are available. So when you see the next event pop up, you can hit attend so you can get notified of the replays if you can't, join us live. You can also find all the replays in my Conscious Exchange company page. And yeah, all the past interviews are there. So with that, thank you all again so much for joining me this morning. We'll see you next Wednesday, same time, same place. Invite your friends, and let's go build things together.